Hey! Hey! You guys saw me put the phone on the, what's the thing? Tripod. Hello there. Happy Saturday. It's Renee. And Gil.
From the Rich Relationship Refuge.
It's so good to see you guys. Happy Saturday. We hope you guys are ready. Kiss me, baby. Kiss me. Mwah. So today's Saturday, and it's our time to be live with you. I'm a hot wife, and he's a hot husband. And what exactly does that mean? Does it mean that we look good?
Well, you do.
You do too.
But what it really talks about is this is something that I would say that we got it, but I think we stole it
from one of our couples, our first
years
couples.
and years ago, and that was something that they shared while we were going through some sessions with them about being hot in your relationship and why that is so important. That's not what we're going to be talking about today, even though it may be a part of the topic. It's just one element of what this is all about as far as relationship wise, and it's called about being honest, open. It's good, baby. It's being honest, open, and transparent.
Yes.
You may have heard that. We didn't coin the phrase, but you know what?
We have it on a t-shirt, though. And it's in our book. So we had it first.
It's so applicable to when you think about your relationships, about why that is so important in all elements, no matter what stage you are, to always be honest, open, and transparent.
Yes. And so today's topic is from the book, The Singles Blueprint to Dating and Marriage. If you haven't picked up your copy, please go to barnesandnoble.com and purchase it, or to your local Barnes and Noble store. They can order it for you. So today we're coming from chapter 8 in the book, and we are going to talk about overcoming obstacles in dating. And we believe that dating is something that you do for a lifetime, even when you're married.
And in the chapter, actual title is The Community in Your Relationships.
No, that's not.
Yeah, chapter 8.
Oh, so it's chapter 9.
It's
I'm sorry, chapter 9 then.
Let's rephrase it. Chapter 9.
Sorry, chapter 8 is next week. It's chapter 9.
But chapter 9's title.
Let me see. I thought I did it right. Let's see. What is it? The topic is overcoming obstacles in relationships. And it is in chapter.
It's a section in the chapter.
Overcoming obstacles. Chapter 7. Sorry. So next week is going to be chapter 8.
Which is your community.
The importance of community. So this week's episode is overcoming obstacles in relationship. That is in the book. If you're following us in the book, it's chapter 7.
Chapter 7. You know, in every part of your relationship, when you actually go through it, especially at the very beginning in the dating cycle, it is always going to be a time of adjustments.
Yes.
You know, and those adjustments are usually going to come from you to them and also them to you. That's just a part of the natural progression when it comes to relationships, especially we've been looking at Renee was reading some of the comments today from a lot of the community and from the last video. Go ahead.
We are so grateful. We get to serve the best community on the planet. We thank you guys for watching and subscribing and commenting. And every time we read a comment, we got a comment. I read it today. We got a whole bunch. One of the comments that really just was a blessing to me, because a lot of times I get to read the comments. I interact with you all more so than Gil does. But it was a blessing when Brian said,
"What's up, Brian?" Because I know you're going to watch it. If you're not watching now, you're going to watch later.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Gil.
No, yeah, I was just saying it's humbling, but it also thank you for the comment. And I didn't really expect it. And it was something that I don't normally see, like Renee said, because she actually reads the comments. But we thank you. I thank you for the comment, Brian. And I'm just trying to do what God has called us to do, which is invest in others' relationships, you know, based on our relationship with the Lord and the time that we've shared together over these 36 years coming up next month, that we have just learned. And that's all we're trying to do is share those things with you guys so you can take it and adapt it to your situation and your circumstances, into your relationships, because all we're doing is making an investment in you.
Yes, because we realize that in these internet streets, it's really easy for people to talk about tweet about, dance about, sing about the problem,
Mhm.
but there are very few places where people are really showing you how to navigate relationships as a single and even as a couple. And so we today are going to talk about overcoming obstacles in dating, because this is something that we realize that it's, well, how do you do it? Well, what do you do?
Mhm.
What does it look like? Because although we're married, we are still dating.
Yeah, we went on a date this past weekend. Friends of ours treated us to a comedy show. It was awesome, and we thank Carolyn and Everett
Thank
for
you. We love
for
that.
that treat. It was great. But that's just one of the things that you have to do when it comes to overcoming those things. So one thing that we want to start out with, we just want to jump right in, is talking about, we are very focused on self assessments and actually giving you practical things that you can do, not just talking about a particular topic or subject, because by just talking about it, you really not really having anything actionable. So that's what we want to provide you with. This is not, we love lists. I love lists. I don't know if you love lists. Do you love lists? I love lists, because when you have a list, it's actually something that you can gauge your own experience against. Not that it's you have to gauge the experience against your situation, but this is something that you can apply to yourself to say, how do I, what are some things that I need to look at? What are
So
some
we
things that I
on
need
this
to
list
focus on?
we have 7 things, and we probably won't get to all.
We'll try.
How about we name all
Well,
7 of them, but we won't get to all 7 of them because we only have 60 minutes. So we're gonna name all of them. We'll talk about some of them that we can, and then you got to get the book if you want all 7.
or come back next weekend. If we have to, we can finish it next
No,
week.
baby, next weekend is going to be the importance of community in relationships.
Adaptability is very essential to your relationship health. So I'm just going to start out. So the very first one we're going to talk about is identity and obstacles. I'm sorry, identify
Identifying the
the
obstacles.
obstacles.
How about if you're here and you're in the chat, put in the chat some of the obstacles you've experienced in relationships and let us know what they are.
What's going on, Miss
Thank you for
Latoya?
joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad you're here.
So, and even this one, let's do it this way, because we want this to just be interactive, because we can just go and just talk. But it's also good to see what the community is talking about, and we'll actually cover the topic that you say cover. How about that?
Yeah,
So
so
we'll
let's give
tell you what the 7 are,
Yeah, that's a good
and
idea.
then you say which one you want us to cover, and then we'll dive into that. And if we don't get any responses, we're just going to jump in and just start from the top and go to the bottom.
Yeah.
So feel free to jump in and say, hey, go straight to this one or that one.
Okay, so the 7.
So the first one is identify the obstacle.
Yes.
Number
The
2.
second one is seek God and his guidance.
Number 3 is heal from past relationships.
Yes.
Number 4.
Clarifying your vision and your goals.
And number 5, communicate with purpose.
Yes. Addressing fear.
And then the last one is stay patient. I know those make you're like, wait a minute, hold up. Those are obstacles? Well, they can be, and that's what we want to share. So I see, Latoya, even though you didn't say it exactly like we said, we're gonna start with that one because it is actually the most important one, was communicating with purpose. So we talked about this at the very beginning of the show. That's kind of like what the shirt is actually talking about, and things that we share with our couples when it comes to communication. We always say it is the foundation, it is the bedrock of every relationship, not only your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship, but every relationship that you have. And the 2 elements that we're going to talk about, 3 elements. The first one, well, this is where I'm going: assertive speech, active listening, and being hot. So, number 1 is about being hot. That's what we talked about at the very beginning. Why is it so important to be honest, open, and transparent in relationships?
Well, being honest, you have to be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
And I think so many times, though, honest with yourself, God, and the other person.
Mhm.
It starts off being honest. Because if you're not being honest, then that means the person may fall in love with a lie. Being transparent means you're going to share the things with the person that they need to know that they don't ask you. That's the difference with being transparent, sharing things that they need to know that they haven't asked you. And then
And being open, I always think about open is closely related to being honest, but so many people think that just because you're honest and telling things about yourself, which are truthful things, which is good,
Mhm.
but if you're not being open about the things that you're being honest about,
Yourself.
you're concealing some things as well. So when we talk about open, we're talking about goals, aspirations, dreams, visions, hurts, past, pain, all those things that are truthfully open and honest about in your life that has happened to you, because people need to know that what they're getting involved with or whom they're getting involved with, and they deserve that, and you deserve it as well, that this person is being open with you. There's an old saying that just because you omit something, is that really lying?
It is.
I would say yes,
It is.
because if you know you should be telling somebody something
And you choose
and
not
you
to.
choose not to, that's you being closed off. And that is something that is very deceitful. And I think that's something that can hinder to put growth in the relationship.
And I think it's also important that you be honest with yourself, because you really can't be honest with someone else. I always say you need to know who you are. You need to know your goals, your dreams. You need to know your own values.
Mhm.
Because how can you really give yourself away if you're not being honest? And so
Right.
a part of that is, a part of being hot is also you got to be honest with yourself. You
Yeah.
got to be honest with yourself. And sometimes that honesty may come from you being honest with you, and also may come from the other person being honest with you.
Yeah. And so even a part of the communication part. So we talked about the being the hot. We talked about active listening. Did we mention active listening yet?
No, active listening. So actively listening means that you're listening to understand. And so many times we're listening to respond, we're listening to interpret, we're listening to
Mhm.
correct the other person. So active listening is listening with the sole purpose of understanding what the other person is saying.
Because if you don't understand where they're coming from or even their point of view, how can you rightfully accept or even listen to? You're not
Get to know.
listening and getting to know this person
Yeah.
from where they are. You don't have to necessarily agree with everything about what
Yeah.
they may say, but you have to listen from their point of view or their vantage point, because we all have experiences, we all have things that have happened in our lives and in our relationships that has an effect on our today's
Is
relationships
that
from the
fine?
past. Yes, it's fine.
Okay.
So, and then the other one we talking about it, and this is talking about obstacles in dating, is having conversations that are intentional. When you think about relationships that you have, especially in the dating phase, you're getting to know somebody, you are asking inquisitive questions, you want to know their past and their background. Well, I say you should have an agenda about what you're talking about. So if you're going on this date with this person, why do you date somebody?
Well,
You
we believe that, well, first you go out. That's
Mhm.
in chapter one, and we talked about that earlier. Difference
Going out
between
and
going
dating,
out and dating. So before you date, you go out,
right?
and when you're going out, you're just gathering information. You're just
Mhm.
getting the as you
Yeah.
talk about
Who's
the
your
numbers
favorite
don't
sport
lie.
teams and
Getting
all
to know,
trivial
yeah,
novel
just the
information? Yeah.
right the surface of that person. And so from getting to know them, from going out, you kind of decide if you would want to date them.
Yep, and go to the next stage. And that's where the deeper things start coming in. That's where the intentional conversations come in, where you want to start knowing the hot things about this person. You want to start knowing the history, the past hurts, the pains, the things that are really going to be a gauge for how you're going to actually excel in the relationship.
And a good example of that would be like on the first time, when the first time you go out, it's not, hi, how are you doing? What's your credit score? How much money you make? How many, a good example of the first time you go out with someone is, hey, what high school did you go to? How many siblings do you have? And it should be going back and forth. You should be getting to know information, just simple basic information on that first time you're going out.
Mhm.
And then which what how do you which the first, I think, in the beginning, getting to know your faith. Hey, where do you serve? Where do you go? Those kind of intentional questions will help you to gather enough information to kind of know if you want to go out again, because you got to go out a few times. I think about what would be something Gil talked about it, how on his he went out on a date with a girl, and they went out, and basically she got into the car. She was in a bad mood. She had an attitude. That could be a deal breaker. And so I talked about in one of the other videos that we have to make sure that as women that we present the best version of ourselves. And that's the version of ourselves that we would want to be with. Because I know I don't want to be with someone who's always negative, who's always complaining, who's always looking at the negative side of life. So you want to make sure that when you're going out on those first few times of going out, and even as a couple, we had to establish that when we go out, we are not going to talk about the kids. We are not going to talk about our families. And so establishing ground rules for dating is not just for singles, it's also for couples.
And Renee mentioned the date that I had before we got together. It was kind of, soon as you get into the car, you ever been around someone who is constantly negative or pointing out things about people or trying to make fun of people? Well, that's something that happened in that date that I was supposedly going out with this person. Yeah, imagine you are going on a date with somebody, and as soon as they get in the car, they just going in. They are
What did
being
she say? What was she saying when she got in the car?
she was I think I was like a couple minutes
Oh yeah.
behind the time to pick her up. And let's just say it wasn't like 20 minutes. I'm talking like 2 or 3 minutes, and pulling up because this is a person that I'm picking up, didn't know the neighborhood. So I'm just trying to find a house. You know how you scan the neighborhood and you're trying to drive and see the address and everything. Well, finally finds it. She gets in the car and she was like, well, you were late. And I thought we were supposed to be able to do this. And I'm just stopping. I'm looking. And I'm like, not even hello, not a greeting, not, hey, good to see you, and that kind of thing. I just listened and I said, you know what? How about we just stop right now? And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, why don't we just end the date right here? Because it already starts out on a bad foot. And so, therefore, you still got time to catch up with your friends. I got time to catch up with my friends, and we can go that way. And I just sat there and I was like, I hope you have a good night. And I'm waiting for her to get out the car. So therefore,
I'm sorry,
that's kind of something.
laugh.
It's funny, but when you come with somebody who's negative from the jump, and you're not that, do you want to go on with that kind of, as people say now, that kind of energy with someone who is actually just going in already, or who is just being difficult, or just not complimentary? Nothing. It's just, you know what? Nah, I pass. So sometimes you just got to cut your loss. If your communication starts out with that from a negative, it's tension, it's the air in the area, it's thick. You know what? Cut it off. Cut it off. Go your separate ways. At least that's what I did in that situation. So that's what we talked about when we talking about communication with purpose. Well, if somebody want to put in a comment, which one do you want us to start out with next? If not, how about we go to the next at the top of the list, which is talking about, you have to identify some obstacles at the very beginning in your relationship.
And we just did
Mhm.
negative
Oh
communication,
yeah.
a bad attitude. Some of the other things that are obvious is that sometimes you meet with someone and you're just not, there is no spark, there is no chemistry. These are all the things you need to think about before you go out with someone. Because I know a lot of our couples meet online, and I don't think there's anything wrong with meeting online. But just like when people meet us in purpose, they're like, oh my gosh, you're just like you are online. Well, that should be the response you get when you meet someone. Uh, there has to be that initial spark, that initial chemistry, and then from that, then you can begin to have those conversations about, you know, your faith, your lifestyle, how many children. All of those are, just starting off with you asking basic information gathering questions, not probing questions.
Mhm.
Probing questions would be, how much money do you make? What's your social security number? Those are more in depth later on down the line. You don't start off there. And I know that in the society we live in, people think, if I just met you, you don't need to know my social security number. If we're just going out, you don't need to know how
Real
much money I make.
personal
You don't
information.
need to know things that, if it has to be secured when you send it through a platform, that's information that should take time
Sure.
to be given.
Sure. So when we're talking about identifying some of the obstacles, one of the other ones is talking about being the fear of vulnerability.
Yeah, that's a big
Even
one.
though you're just dating, when we're talking about it from the being vulnerable, is talking about things that really matter. When you're not really open to even conversating about, okay, I'm dating this person because I want to get to know them. But some people just want to date for other intentions, what that means, fill in the blank, that it can be something that is not going to be very beneficial towards long-term effects when it comes to those things as far as being vulnerable. How about unrealistic expectations?
I think one of the biggest unrealistic expectation is that when you're going out and on dating,
Hmm.
that can set us up for because if we're just the first time we actually go have coffee or dinner, we're not dating, we're just going out. And so if I believe that because you asked me to coffee that you're going to be my husband, that is a very unrealistic expectation. Or to feel like because you asked me out, then I have access to your resources.
You may see some of the videos, and it's always funny to me how people look at unrealistic expectations. I remember like one of Renee's first dates, and one of the first dates Renee and I had was, if you don't have a lot of money and you want to take somebody to a nice place, take them to the best that you can afford.
Yes.
But if this person already comes in with the expectation like they only eat at top shelf restaurants, well, what if you're not in that position, even if you have the resources and you don't want to go that far into the relationship as far as investing in it because you're just getting to know the person?
Yeah.
Do you think that's an unrealistic expectation where they expect you to take them to a top shelf place and spend all kinds of money on them when they really don't really even know you?
Yeah.
It was funny. I seen a video, and I think it was kind of staged, but this person asked a guy to take her to the grocery store. So she goes to the grocery store, and she was getting in the car fussing because she thought he was going to pay for all of her groceries. He said, "Hey," and they went to Target, one of those, the Target store, and she's like, "I thought you were just gonna pay for everything. We supposed to be dating." Well, he was just going out. He was offering her a ride just as a friend, but she was expecting him unrealistically to pay for all of her items. Is that unrealistic?
Yeah. And I also think that it's unrealistic to think that because you take someone out that they owe you something. And so it goes on both sides. So women shouldn't expect that a man who takes you to Target is going to pay for everything. And a
Hmm.
man shouldn't expect that because I take you to a nice restaurant that I owe you anything. Because we believe that sex is for marriage. Because sex is the mystery of marriage. It keeps you connected. It keeps you seeing each other with a sense of grace that you don't need to see a boyfriend with. And so I know that that may not be a popular answer, but the reason why you reserve sex for marriage is because it allows you to keep us valuable for someone who values
Yeah,
you.
the most important thing, and that kind of goes into the next part of ID and obstacles is unresolved hurt and pain. Let's think about some of the relationships you had that didn't go as well as you has expected to do. And just like Renee just described, and let's just say you slept with a person, they call them soul ties.
Yeah. No,
Do
there
you
are soul
do
ties.
you think that's going to affect the next relationships that you go into when you have those kind of connections with somebody that you're not even with anymore?
Yeah.
And so therefore sometimes it goes to the extreme to where you like, I don't even want to date anybody because of some past hurt and pain that you experience, and or holding them to a standard or to a level of commitment that you had or you expected from them from the very beginning. That's almost like blending unrealistic expectations in with
Past hurt.
past hurt and pain.
Yeah. And what does that look like? What does it look like to not hold someone? Because we shared a video from 3 years ago about forgiveness. When if I am if let's just say Gil kicks my foot and he says, I'm sorry. And I say, okay, I forgive you. But every time Gil walks past me, I move my foot. when you forgive someone, if you're reacting to someone based on what someone else did, then that means you're walking in unforgiveness. And so if you're dating someone, that person needs the opportunity to show you who they are, not for you to go into it
Preconceived.
expecting
Yep.
that they're going to be what, because everyone shouldn't have to pay for the pain of your past. And so when we're going into relationships, when we're going out and we're going on dates, we have to make sure that we're open to giving the person the chance to show me who they are,
Hmm.
and not that you had this conversation in your head, because the Bible says out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And so many times what's in our heart comes out of our mouth, and it can affect the other person. And so making sure that when we go out with someone, that we don't go
Hmm.
out with the other person, and that we don't make this person feel bad or penalized for what someone else did.
One thing that we just did a teaching at church with some of the premaritals that we just did, and the topic was talking about expectations. And one of the points that came up in the teaching was we all going to come into our relationship with baggage.
Mm-hmm.
We all have it, whether it's from childhood of origin issues, whether it's from past relationships, hurts and pains, whether it's from friends and family and all those things. All of that is going to have an impact on how you interact with people, especially someone you're trying to
Get to know.
discern or even decide if this is someone I want to spend a significant amount of time with, if not the rest of my life with, getting to know on a more intimate level. But you can't hold that against anybody else,
Right.
especially the person that you want to be committed to for the rest of your life. Yes, we all have it, but when you are holding on to it, that is something that is going to impact and hurt you in the long run. We think about, I always love the scripture, and that kind of spills over into another part of the obstacles, seeking God's guidance on this, not only to identify the hurt and past and pains that you have, but also to say, you know what? Sometimes your picker can be broke,
Yeah.
where you are picking the wrong person over and over again. You need some insight, and your friends and family and maybe somebody else can't give that to you. Well, God can give that to you.
Yeah.
The
And
Bible says in
coaches
Proverbs 3:53, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind.
and
Lean
lean
not
not
on
on
your
our
own understanding. In
understanding,
all
all
your
your ways
ways, acknowledge him first, and he will direct
direct
your
your
path.
path.
That tells me not only in when I'm making decisions about, say, a vocation, or I'm making a decision about where I should live or what car I should buy and all those things, it actually works when it comes to who
Yeah.
should I be investing my time, effort, and energy into when it comes to a relationship.
Right.
Because if your picker has been broken, God says, you know what? If you're leaning and trusting in me, I'm going to direct your path. And that path may be away from someone that you think is the one. So that's something that we talk about even in throughout this teaching, but even throughout the book, seeking God's guidance on that, because we believe that He is the creator of all relationships, especially the marital relationship. So that's that one. We kind of spilled over and talked a little bit about heal from the hurts and past. You want to talk a little bit about forgiveness? This is number four. Number three. This is a part of healing from the past. Forgiveness, and then having support from others.
Yeah, and if you guys watch, we actually did a video. I actually just shared it. But one of the reasons why forgiveness is so important, and we did a video talking about it last week, and then we shared another video, but it hit a nerve for a lot of people, and we got a lot of feedback about how forgiveness is not, man can't forgive, and forgiveness is hard. Well, I think forgiveness is hard because it's not something we're used to practicing, and
Hmm.
it's not something that there are certain things we put on naturally, and sometimes the things we put on naturally are not healthy.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is important because forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness requires for you to give up the right to give the person a consequence for what they did or what they're doing. And so we all need forgiveness, so therefore we have to be willing to give it readily. And forgiveness does not mean reconciliation.
Yeah, that was, and you have to talk a little bit more about that one, because when you think about reconciliation, people think, especially if you're a follower of Christ, that it automatically means that you got to be reconnected with this person.
No, forgiveness means I give up the right to give you a consequence for what you do, because that's God's job. Reconciliation means that we both have decided that we want to rebuild the trust in the relationship. Rebuilding trust takes time, and it takes both parties. So there's reconciliation. And so when you understand that, it just makes it a little bit easier for you not to feel like, well, I'll forgive you when we get back together. Well, we may never get back together. But forgiveness is requires one person, and it's something that as believers we're required to do because we ask God for forgiveness. So therefore he gives it. So therefore we should rightfully give forgiveness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that we want to spill over into is when you're talking about an obstacle that can impact your dating cycle, or especially this episode is for the singles, but it can be applicable to those who are already in committed relationships or even married. Is clarify your vision and as far as your standards. When we talk about that, we're actually talking about from a dating standpoint, what are your non-negotiables? Do you know what they are? Do you know what things that you just know I'm not going to move forward with this person because of this? Hopefully, it's not something that holds them to a standard from someone else. And when we talk about it from
It's
non
character.
negotiables, exactly,
Yeah.
we're talking about it from values, character. You want to
We're
talk
not
about
we're
that?
not talking about, oh, he's too short, or she don't make enough money, or her nose is too big, or her hair is too
Yeah,
short, or
superficial
we're
stuff.
not talking about attributes. We're talking about values. We're talking about character. They're a believer, they're not a believer. They share they have a good work ethic. They have a good relationship with their parents.
Do they have integrity?
Yes, what are they the same person in person as they are in private?
Or when they with their friends. You ever had someone that you're around and they kind of morph into someone totally different when they're around other people? That can be a sign,
Yeah.
and especially with non-negotiables, I always think about what are some of the things that, and sometimes it could be things that you just decided that is a standard for you. I think about in our today's society, a lot of people have children from other relationships that have
Mhm,
not been married or even are married. And
mhm.
you may decide that you don't want to be a stepmom, stepdad, or even father or mother of someone else's children. That could be a standard that we're
Yeah, for
talking
you.
about,
And
and that's okay.
I think that that's a very valid standard if you don't have children. I think that it's an unrealistic expectation for you to say, I can have kids, but you can't. Or I can be in debt, but you can't. I can be overweight, but you can't. I think that whatever value you set for someone else,
Mhm.
you have to first be modeling it. You can't expect from someone else what you don't bring to the table. One of the things, years ago when, we were I was doing hair and working with women, and, well, how did you find your husband? And, how do you find, and so it's just important that we become what we're looking for. We can't expect for someone to be all of these things that we're not, because we're going to attract what we are and not
Mhm.
what we want. So just make sure, again, that we're taking that long journey inward. And this book, The Singles Blueprint for Dating is Marriage, is not about you finding Mr. or Mrs. Right. It's about you becoming right with God, right with yourself, and having a realistic biblical expectation of what the dating journey looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, Sandra. And I love the way you said that as far as non negotiables relate to character and value. Also, non negotiable could be based upon what you know that God has personally spoken to you. That is
Very true. And that requires you taking the time to get to know what you're called to do.
self
For
reflection.
yes, spending time with God. Because I think about, and I was telling Gil this, I said, I'm really grateful because we are really blessed that we can work together, we can play together, we can pray together, we can teach together, and we can preach together.
Yeah.
It's really, and I know it's because of the way God wired us both. I don't believe that God makes one person for you, but I do believe that there are God's best choice for you. And I believe that because of our ministry callings and just our personal lives, God allowed us to select well. And I know that that's a gift. And that's why we openly, willingly share our ups and our downs, our highs and our
Hmm.
lows. Well, how do you do this? How do you navigate being different? That's why we do this, because we want people to see that there
Yeah.
are real, live, healthy, God fearing relationships that are out here. And so that's what we share, not because we're perfect, not because we have it all figured out, but because there are things that we have learned that if you practice biblical principles, because we didn't grow up in church.
No.
We were not Christians. We didn't have Christian homes. But I can tell you 100%, if you practice biblical principles, they do work. I didn't just say go to church. I didn't just say speak in tongues. I didn't just say pay your tithes. I said practice biblical principles. Because there are people who are unsaved, who don't know the Lord, who practice biblical principles, and they'll benefit in the earth, just not eternally. We as believers should benefit in the earth and eternally.
Yep. And so we're talking about, when we talk about clarifying your vision and your, as far as standards and everything, make sure you set some boundaries.
Yes.
Not just physical boundaries, one, like as an example, one thing that we just decided when we were dating, and it's carried over even in our relationships. I don't ride in cars with other women without Renee knowing about it in certain situations and circumstances, or period. Because stay away from the appearance of something that could be misunderstood or misconstrued. And it gets back to Renee, because people are messy in our day and times.
Oh, they've been messy.
So, and if they see me out or driving with another lady or another woman in the car, they don't know the whole story behind it.
Right.
But what we have done when we talk about boundaries, like as a
Safeguard.
physical boundary that we said, I'm gonna start. If there's something happened, like I had a coworker that needed to have me drop her off to pick up her car. Well, even though it was only like a 5 minute ride to like the service station, I still called Renee before I even got in the car, in front of her, and said, "Hey, Renee, I'm gonna take such and such to pick up her car, just so you know what's going on." She was like, "Okay, no big deal." She knows the person. She's a family friend, so it wasn't nothing shady or nothing funny about it. And I probably could have did it without Renee knowing, and it would still wouldn't have been a big deal. But that is just a boundary that we set up in our relationship, that we mutually have set up, that has been very important to the health of our
And it's
relationship.
safeguard. And like for me, one of the safeguards I had to set up, and I didn't set this up until later because I didn't realize it. Those of us who are friendly, where are my friendly people at? Put it in the chat if you're friendly. When you're married, friendly can be interpreted as flirtatious. So I had to learn that my being friendly with men had to stop, because I didn't
Yep.
want to give a welcome sign. I didn't want to give a I'm available sign. So I had to set the boundary, and this was later
Oh
on.
yeah.
I was at the salon and the mailman came in. I was talking to him and I was being my friendly self. And he was like, "Oh, you acting like you want to be with me, bruh." What?
What?
Oh, I said, "Oh, wait a minute." And
Hold
so
up.
I had to look at myself and say, "Oh, I'm gonna stop that." So now if I'm out, I don't give men eye contact. I don't do anything. I don't even look, because I don't want to give the appearance that I'm available. So you have to set up boundaries. And as your relationship grows,
Mhm.
the boundaries have to grow. And you have to learn what you can and can't do. And I always say a boundary is an inward swinging door. A boundary is to protect me and keep me in, not to keep other people out.
Yep.
Because the Bible only gives us self control, it does not give us
Control over
people
others.
control.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And then also talking about boundaries. Remember, there's also other sides of boundaries where we talk about it. We're talking about it from an emotional standpoint and a spiritual standpoint. These are boundaries that you should be thinking about as an obstacle when it comes to dating. If you're in that dating cycle, think about it. The Bible talks about not being unequally yoked. When we say a boundary of a spiritual side, there's a difference between having spirituality and having a relationship with Lord and Savior. We are Christians. That's what we have decided as our choice of
Christ
faith,
followers.
and we're Christ followers. So imagine if I'm a Christian and someone is another persuasion or another faith, or even no faith at
Not
all.
denomination. Denominations are different. We're
Yep.
talking about you believe in Jesus and
They don't. Let's just say
they don't believe at all.
go to the extreme and say they're a
Atheists.
atheist and they don't believe in any God whatsoever. Well, that's a boundary. That should be an indicator that dating is not evangelism.
Evangelism.
Please do not make dating evangelism.
Yes.
No matter how good they look or smell or
Or
have
sing
or have
or
all the or
dance or
have
how
all,
much money they got.
woo, you better say that. That that
Woo.
is not a time for you to say, you know what?
I'm going to lead them to the Lord.
Well,
And
guess
they shall.
what? No, no, let's just be honest. That ain't what you thinking.
They gonna lead you
They
somewhere. They
gonna
ain't
lead
gonna
you
lead to
somewhere.
the
Yeah,
Lord.
they go. That ain't what you thinking about. You thinking about, you know what?
That brother fine or that sister fine.
I'm this is a spiritual. You know what? I feel a calling that I need to witness to
No,
this.
that you just probably horny. That is not the Lord calling you.
So be honest, be hot. We said that earlier. Be hot. Well, you know what? It is not evangelism. So that's what we're talking about at an extreme for the emotional and spiritual side of
Having
that.
boundaries.
Emotional is your emotions start getting involved and will definitely lead you to a place that you may not want to go and that you shouldn't go.
Yeah.
So even if you're not, you know, if you're in a dating cycle, we talked about it earlier about let's just see, call it what it is, sleeping together. That is going to be an impact to your relationship.
It is.
You know,
And it's
so
going to
that's
cloud your ability to
your
see that
emotions are
person.
going to get involved.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about, you know. So addressing some fears. We're going through the list. If you just joined us, we appreciate you guys
Thank you.
hanging out with us. All the comments, we see them feeding through. By all means, thank you guys for just commenting and sharing and interacting with us. You were talking about obstacles in dating, and this is from our book, you
The
know, the
singles
singles
blueprint for
blueprint.
dating and marriage.
You know, because a lot of singles seems like they kind of feel like they've been falling through the cracks, you know, as far
Yeah,
as
we
nobody
love
makes
y'all.
videos specifically geared towards them. And for those who want to move to the next stage from singleness to a committed long-term marital relationship. Well,
But
that's what we're talking about.
and you know, one of the reasons why we did this is because we believe you play like you practice. So if you learn to date from someone who is not married, how well do you think they can lead you to where you want to go? And we've said this before.
Mhm.
I just believe that it's easy to talk about the problem.
Yep.
Everybody is talking about the problem. Everybody's making jokes about the problem. Everybody is making um content around talking about, but
Just talking about this.
right,
Yeah.
we want to provide solutions and to show you how to navigate relationships in a healthy way where you can get the results you want. Because if I want to be fit, I want someone who is fit to teach me how to do that. If I want to learn how to have
Good financial health.
I want to learn. I don't want to learn
Somebody
how.
who's catching the bus and broke.
No, I don't want a fat trainer. I don't want a broke financial planner. I don't want someone teaching me about marriage and
Anything. Yeah.
relationships. And that's just me. That's my own personal preference. Everyone is different. So we wanted to provide a safe environment for singles to learn about
Mhm.
dating and marriage and for couples to kind of realize, oh man, I have something that's valuable
Oh, yeah,
because it is a
absolutely.
gift.
So we've been sharing with you. So we've already covered identifying the obstacles,
Hmm.
seeking God's guidance,
Hmm.
hurt,
Handling hurt from your past.
handling hurt from your past.
Yes.
Talk about clarifying your vision and your standards.
Hmm.
And then we talked about communicating with purpose
Purpose.
about that. We mentioned being hot and those types of things. We talked about assertive speech and all that. Well, the last two that we're going to share with you in the time that we have remaining is the next one is going to be talking about addressing your own personal fears. That can be a big obstacle when it comes to dating. I see your eyes rolling because you're thinking, go ahead and say it.
Um, the thing that I think is, we talked about it in our other book, The Marital Code of Oneness. We as humans, we build our life on one of two things. It's either fear or love. And so if you're going to build your life
Mhm.
on fear, which fear is, God gave us two natural fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Those are natural human God given fears. And the Bible says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. So if it's not those three fears, the other fears is the fear of intimacy, the fear of being rejected, the fear of
Failure.
failure, the fear of being alone. I mean, there's all these other fears. So where
Mhm.
they come from? They come from our experiences.
Yep.
And so we have to make sure that the Bible says, present yourself to God a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, which is your reason. So if we present ourselves to God every day, we have to present our fears and we have to talk about them. And even with Gil and I talk about the things I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And so you have to address your fears with you and the Lord and address your fears so you can know what they are. And then as you go in through the dating, get to the dating stage, not the going out stage. Hi, how are you doing? I'm afraid. No, you don't do that. I don't know you yet.
Right.
Let the person get to know you.
Right.
And to really, because a part of getting to know you is to know the things about you that gives them enough information to know if they want to know more. And so sharing your fears and addressing your fears is a really healthy way of being aware of it, because we always say whatever you don't talk out, you're going to act out.
Yes.
So
And
overcoming the fears.
I even think about when you talk about the fear of failure, we are naturally going to fail at things throughout our lifetime.
Mhm.
And especially if I would say, I'm going to be generalized here. Most people have failed at a relationship
Oh, yeah.
at some time
Everyone
in the point,
has.
especially at the very beginning. You've
Yeah.
been dumped, and sometimes you may have dumped other people. Well, that's just a fear of failure of a relationship. So if you think about that going into your next relationship, and you have a fear that is dictating how you're going to interact with this person of your today based on yesterday's information,
Yeah.
that is going to sometimes prevent you from having a good thing
Yeah.
and
Because
having a good experience.
failing is not the worst that can happen, because
Sometimes it can
even
be a
when
benefit.
because sometimes when you fail, you can learn from it. It's like, okay, so this is what I did wrong. Okay, so I learned from my failures. And one of the things we talked about baggage, but we want to give you luggage. Luggage is tools. It's what you learn from your failures. So your baggage is your hurt, your pain, your disappointment. Your luggage
That you
are the
carry.
things you
Yep.
take and you learn from it. So we want to help you have tools. We want to give you luggage. We want you to have the ability to be honest about the fact we all have fears. We all have failures. And so it's just learning how to take the things that the enemy means for good. God can use it for your good if you give it to the Lord.
Yes, absolutely. And then the fear of rejection.
Yeah,
How many people have been rejected before?
I have.
Exactly. You've been rejected, and we're talking about it in the dating aspect. We had that conversation already, talking about it from the context of failure. Where if you've been rejected before, we tell our couples, or even tell people that we counsel or we talk to, well, not counsel, but coach and those types of things, is that when somebody rejects you, it's not a rejection of you. It just
Yeah.
means that you're not their preference.
Preference. Rejection is protection, because rejection is about preference and not value. Let me say that again. Someone rejecting you does not mean you're not valuable. It just means you're not their flavor. And when the Lord taught me that, it gave me so much freedom,
Hmm.
because if someone is accepting you with a false pretense, they're really not accepting you, they're holding you up.
Hmm.
I always say, don't let somebody put you on layaway. If they are not willing to make the valuable investment in you, then walk on by.
Do you see how all these things are intertwined? When it talks about, as Renee even was describing that, it kind of goes back to you doing some self reflection. It goes back to you having some non negotiables and having your own standards.
And to you, what we say, this right here, I am more than enough. This is not just something that we have on a cup and t-shirts. You, sir, you, ma'am, are more than enough by yourself in a room with nobody there. You are valuable. God has purpose for you, has identity for you. He has a plan for you. And I shared a video about getting married is not the end all to be all.
It's a whole new chapter of a
Marriage
whole
is
new
not
thing.
for everybody. Marriage is a sacrifice, it's a commitment. It requires something that everyone does not have the capacity for. But whether you're married or single, you have the same value to God. And so I think that it's important that we go into life realizing that all by myself, I'm more than enough. Whether I'm single or married, whether I have kids, or your value is not in anything outside of you and God.
And even when it comes to rejection, you don't want to give someone that much power and
Oh
that
my
much
gosh.
control over who you are as an individual. Rejection, man, please. You're going to experience it.
Yes.
That just means you're not their preference.
Yes.
So, guess what? Move on to the person
Yeah.
that is your preference,
And you
because
want
that's what
to
God has
be,
in store for you.
yeah, and you want to go. That's what I always say. We say we go to warm places. We go to where we are wanted
And
and
accepted, and people want your
accepted, and
presence. They want you to be
yeah,
around.
you don't want to be
Tolerated.
tolerated.
No.
You want to go where you're preferred. You want to go where there is an exchange and there's reciprocity. That's in dating, that's in life, that's in relationship, that's at work. You deserve to be in an environment where your value is increased and appreciated and not torn down, and where you're not feeling made to feel like you're not important, you're not valuable.
And then the last one we're going to talk about in this last few minutes that we got is stay patient.
Yes.
when we say that from a dating perspective, you have so many people that that we've come across that feel like their clock is running out, that time is ticking by, and they should be at a certain point in their life about based on when it comes to the dating cycle and getting married and all those types of things. Well, you want to be in a position or stay in a position that you allow God to bring this person across your path. And sometimes it can be lonely. It can. And that's understandable. That's a normal human condition that we all go through at different stages and different times. But we're here to tell you that if you stay patient and work on yourself during that time where you are by yourself or not actively dating someone, when we say dating, again, going out versus dating,
It's not the
you
same.
know, I ain't talking about just going out with friends and other like that. I'm talking about someone that you're dating for the next step.
Right.
Use that time as personal growth. Use
Mhm.
that time to whether it's look at this videos, other people's videos, read some books, do some personal assessment. Anybody who's watched anything that we put out on this internet sphere is we're always talking about self-assessment, getting
It's
to
a
know
big
you,
journey.
loving yourself, knowing that you are not a failure and that you you are worthy, you are more than enough. All those things, those are the things that you should be building up right now inside of you while you're moving to that dating stage. So that personal growth is something that is vital to your health when it comes to relationships.
And if you're married, be patient with the other person that you made a
Mhm.
decision to spend the rest of your life with, because being patient, I did one of the books that the first book, Tragedy to Majesty, I wrote a poem, is called The Weight of Waiting. One of the things that we have not been taught how to do is how to wait, and how to wait
Mhm.
well, how to wait with anticipation and hope and purpose and even grace. And so, whether you're single on the journey towards
Mhm.
God helping you to become the best version of yourself to give yourself away, or if you're married and you are spending your life with another human being that's not like you, learning to wait and be patient is beneficial to the health and the fulfillment of your relationship. Because if we want everything now, how are we going to learn the things that waiting teaches us? Because waiting teaches us patience, and it teaches us compassion, it teaches us empathy, and it teaches us that you're not going to always get what you want when you want it. We learn the most when we're doing the things that we hate the most. Waiting, going through rejection, being single or being married in a difficult season. We're all going to go through all those different stages, and we have to learn how to wait well. We have to learn how to allow the purpose that God has for relationships to fulfill itself in us, because being married to another person and even dating someone else, you're going to learn things about yourself. You're going to learn the most about yourself in relationships, because you may think you're ready to be in a relationship until you get bumped up against another person and you realize, oh my gosh, it's
Mhm.
like, no, it wasn't that person, that was in you anyway. And so spend the time, be patient with yourself and the journey to get to know the things in you that need to grow and change, and so that you can share yourself with someone else.
And if you use the list that we just shared with you during this last hour against that self assessment, that self growth, that list, it can actually be beneficial to you. That's
Yeah.
talking about this is what you should be working on right now.
Yes.
We've worked with so many couples over these last 20 years, and it always comes back to the topics that we share with you guys over and over
And
and
over and
over and
over and
over
over and
again.
over and over.
The Bible says there is nothing new under the sun. Relationships is not a mystery. We are the mystery that we need to work out in ourselves, the things that have happened to us and throughout our lives that is causing us to have obstacles and hurts and trauma and
Mm-hmm.
toxicity and all the things that the world has called to describe that makes us want to run and hide and have all these issues and challenges and thinking that we should be, locked away in a closet
Yeah.
somewhere. No,
No.
that's not what it's all about.
Yeah.
So we hope you guys have joined in, Brian and Sandra, and all the other chimes
We
in.
love you
We thank you guys for
guys.
sharing with us and
You
putting
guys
some
are
self.
amazing.
Yeah, we enjoy just kind of. Let's just say all we do is lead the discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, we love that you guys chime in and gives the
Share
words of
and
wisdom that
share.
I've been reading here as we've been going through against Sandra and Brian. Thank you guys for putting those
Thank
things down there to
you.
share with our community because we always say we are stronger together. It's
Yes.
not just us. We're just leading this topic.
Yeah.
So next time, Chandra, Brian, y'all put y'all stuff out there, then we'll chime in and we'll be in the gallery putting in some chimes in your text feed. So
yeah, we love you guys. Thank you so much for being with us. So whether you're watching now live or later on, put in the chat where you're watching from. And next Saturday, our topic at 12 noon will be the purpose and the importance of community in our lives as singles as well as couples too. So we love you guys, and we'll see you guys next Saturday at 12 noon. And thank you so much
like,
for being.
subscribe, share, do all those things.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah, see, I'm social media savvy.
He is.
Yeah. Love you guys. See y'all
like,
later.
subscribe, share, and turn on the bell notification so that you know when we go live. And share it with all your family and friends. We love you guys, and we'll see you guys next Saturday.
See y'all.
Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.